Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. Today we're going to really dive deep into a fascinating study.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it looks at how management ideas spread and, more importantly, how they're adapted.
Like translated.
Yeah, translated for different contexts.
That's always interesting, right? It's like that game of telephone we played as kids.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Totally.
You whisper something in one person's ear.
Right.
And it inevitably morphs as it goes around the circle.
It always comes out so different.
Yeah.
And this study is called It Takes a Village, Translating Management Ideas Through an Ecology of Roles.
Okay.
And it's from the Journal of Management Studies.
Okay.
So,
and what's really cool about this study is it moves beyond just like identifying, who adopted the idea.
Right.
It actually looks at the roles people play in that translation process.
Yes.
It's like, are they catalysts?
Right.
Are they opponents? Different things like that.
Yeah, think of it as an intricate dance with multiple partners all contributing to the final outcome.
Okay.
And the study uses this to look at the leadership pipeline as a framework for leadership development.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that you progress through different levels from managing yourself to managing the entire enterprise.
Sure, a classic concept, one that's often presented as like a universal solution to leadership development.
Exactly. But this one looks at how this seemingly universal idea was translated and implemented in Denmark's public sector. It became the Public Leadership Pipeline, or PLP.
So not just a straight copy and paste,
No.
More like a deliberate process of adaptation.
Yes.
I'm intrigued already. Where do we start?
Well, the researchers break it down into 3 phases.
Okay.
Phase 1 is called initiating,
Makes sense.
and it all starts with 2 Danish consultants,
Okay.
Peter and Morten,
All right.
who saw the potential of the leadership pipeline for Denmark's public sector.
Now, I'm guessing they probably realized that just dropping a private sector idea into a public sector environment might not be the smoothest move.
Yeah, they knew they had to domesticate the idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Think about it. The public sector is often wary of anything that smells like corporate jargon or buzzwords.
Definitely. So how did they make it palatable for the public sector?
Well, they wore a lot of hats.
Okay.
They started by being catalysts,
Okay.
bringing together public managers and HR specialists to discuss and co-create the model.
So it wasn't about imposing a prepackaged solution.
No.
It was more about dialogue and buy-in from the get-go.
Exactly.
Smart move because, collaboration breeds ownership.
Absolutely.
Makes people feel like they're a part of it.
Yes, and then they play the codifier role.
Okay.
But this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They use their university affiliation to actually frame the project as action research. So it wasn't just about their expertise. It was about grounding the project in rigorous academic principles.
So it added legitimacy.
Legitimacy and credibility.
Yeah, and credibility.
Yeah.
That's clever because it addresses that inherent skepticism I think people have towards consultants. When they're coming in, they're pushing the latest management fat. It's like, no, this is backed by research.
Yes.
Not just salesmanship.
Exactly.
Okay.
But they didn't stop there.
Okay.
They recognized that the Danish public sector had its own unique context.
Right.
So they took on the contextualizer role.
Okay.
And they actively sought out sites from experienced public managers. And this led to the creation of 8 special leader competencies, specifically for the Danish context.
So they're blending the general framework with on-the-ground realities.
Precisely.
I like it.
It's like custom fitting a suit.
Yeah.
You start with a basic pattern,
Right.
but you adjust it to fit the individual perfectly.
That's a good analogy.
And this brings us to the liaison role.
Okay. The liaison role.
What's fascinating here is that some participants were already experimenting with the PLP in their own organizations before the model was even finalized.
Wow. So they're like eager beavers?
They know.
They're like, we see the potential. Let's just start doing it.
Yeah, they're putting it into practice right away.
That's a great example of how these roles aren't sequential or isolated.
Right.
They're all happening at the same time.
At the same time?
And they're all influencing one another.
Yes.
So these early adopters are acting as liaisons.
Yes.
They're probably giving feedback to the codifiers, which is shaping the model even further.
I totally agree. It's a dynamic interplay.
Yeah.
Not a linear process.
Not at all.
And it seems like they had some key endorsements early on.
Oh, yeah, like what?
The Scandinavian copyright holders of the original Leadership Pipeline book were actually supportive.
Okay.
And there's even some positive media coverage right away.
So those early endorsements probably helped build momentum.
Yeah.
give the PLP a sense of legitimacy.
It's like getting a glowing review
Yeah.
from a trusted source.
Exactly.
But of course, not everyone was immediately on board.
Oh, I'm sure there were skeptics.
Oh, absolutely. Some competing consultancy firms were doubtful.
Yeah.
You know, questioning whether a concept developed for the private sector could truly work in the public sector world.
The inevitable naysayers.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about the role of opponents in this whole process.
Yeah.
Because they might seem like obstacles.
Right.
But they can actually contribute to refining an idea.
Right.
Strengthening it by forcing proponents to address the weaknesses.
Yeah.
And articulate their arguments more clearly.
Yeah, it's like that saying, iron sharpens iron.
Exactly.
So we have this mix of roles.
We do.
Catalysts, codifiers, contextualizers, liaisons, endorsers, and opponents.
Yeah.
All interacting and shaping this translation of the leadership pipeline into the Danish public sector.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
It is.
What strikes me is this idea of like codependency
Yes.
and reciprocal authorization. You mentioned earlier, can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Definitely. So
Yeah.
the researchers found that the success of this translation process really hinged on the relationships between the actors.
Okay.
The consultants relied on the researchers to gain acceptance,
Right.
and the researchers depended on the practitioners to test and refine the ideas.
So it was a mutually beneficial exchange.
Exactly.
Not just about individual players, but the connections.
the connections.
They forge, it's like a web.
Yes.
Each strand contributes to the strength and resilience of the whole thing.
That's a fantastic analogy.
I liked it.
And that is how the public leadership pipeline was born.
The PLP.
But the story doesn't end there.
I bet it doesn't.
We're just getting started.
Okay, so stay tuned, everyone, as we delve into phase 2
Yes.
in just a moment. I'm excited to see how this ecology of roles evolves
Yes.
as the PLP starts to spread its wings.
This is where things get really interesting.
All right, let's do it. All right, so the public leadership pipeline is taking root.
Or, as we're calling it, the PLP.
The PLP, yeah, so what happens next?
Well, buckle up, because phase 2 is all about expansion.
Okay.
The PLP takes off like a rocket.
Really?
Over a third of Danish local governments are implementing it.
Wow.
It becomes like the model
A model.
for leadership development in the public sector.
That's impressive growth. What fueled that?
Remember those conferences Peter and Morten were organizing?
Yeah.
They become even more crucial in this phase,
Okay.
evolving from those initial brainstorming sessions to like vibrant hubs, for sharing experiences.
Right.
Managers from different organizations are connecting, swapping stories, troubleshooting challenges,
Yeah.
and just creating a buzz around the PLP.
So the catalyst role is expanding,
Yes.
bringing more and more people into the fold.
Yes.
It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Gathering momentum as it rolls along.
And the codifier role also goes through an interesting shift here.
Okay, how so?
It's no longer just about academic research.
Okay.
Now it's grounded in the Danish book, The Public Leadership Pipeline,
Okay.
published in 2012.
Right.
And this elevates Peter and Morten's consulting firm, PM Consultancy,
Okay.
to like the authority on all things PLP.
So they've leveraged their research focus.
Yes.
To build their brand as like the go-to experts.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a natural progression, right?
it is.
You go from relying on academic legitimacy
Yeah.
to establishing your own expertise.
You hit the nail on the head.
Right.
And this shift is mirrored in the contextualizer role as well.
Okay.
Remember those public managers who were early adopters?
Yeah.
Well, they become like the stars of the show,
Oh, wow.
the practical witnesses, as the researchers call them.
Okay.
They're sharing their success stories, the challenges they overcame, and how the PLP made a real difference in their organizations.
So that would be really persuasive, I imagine. Hearing it from your peers, people who've actually done it,
Yes.
carries a lot more weight than just theoretical arguments.
Absolutely. And this dissemination of practical knowledge
Yeah.
isn't limited to conferences.
Okay.
As managers change jobs, they take their PLP know-how with them,
Right.
acting as liaisons,
Yeah.
and spread the model to new organizations.
So the liaison role is almost like a viral vector,
Yes.
carrying the PLP to new hosts,
Yes.
multiplying its reach.
Fascinating.
Very cool. And I'm guessing the endorsements keep coming.
Oh, you bet the media loves a success story.
Of course.
Government agencies are happy to promote these homegrown solutions.
Right?
And early adopters become vocal advocates.
Yeah.
It's a chorus of approval.
Wow.
that further amplifies the PLP's appeal.
It sounds like an unstoppable force.
It does.
But were there any dissenting voices? Because I know in the early stages,
Yes.
there were some.
There were.
What happens to the opponents as the PLP starts to gain traction?
Well, they don't fade away. In fact, they become more vocal.
Oh, wow.
Some academics start to question, the long-term sustainability of the PLP, wondering if it's just a trendy management fad.
Yeah. Will it fizzle out?
That will eventually fizzle out.
Okay.
Others point out the limitations,
Yeah.
arguing that the model's emphasis on hierarchy
Right.
doesn't always align with the realities of increasingly collaborative work environments.
So it's not without its critics.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even widely adopted ideas
Yeah.
should still be scrutinized,
Yes.
evaluated. You
Yeah.
can't just take them at face value.
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Despite this opposition, the expansion continues.
Wow.
It's fueled by what the researchers call a legitimizing relationship
Okay.
between these roles.
Right.
They're all feeding off of each other,
Right.
reinforcing the PLP,
Yeah.
even as some cracks are starting to show. And this sets the stage for a rather dramatic turn of events in phase 3.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me more. All right. You mentioned a dramatic turn of events. What happens in phase 3 that shakes things up?
Well, by 2016, the PLP is a household name in the Danish public sector. But that initial excitement has cooled down a bit, and a major challenge emerges, one that puts the spotlight back on those opponents.
I'm all ears. What happened?
Remember those competing consultancy firms we talked about?
Yeah, the ones who were skeptical.
Yeah, they were skeptical of the PLP from the start.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't just grumbling on the sidelines anymore.
Oh, so they got more active.
Things escalated to a whole new level.
Really? What did they do?
The Scandinavian copyright holders of the original Leadership Pipeline book sued Peter and Morton for plagiarism.
Whoa, talk about high stakes.
Yeah?
I guess this shows the potential pitfalls of translating and adapting ideas,
Yes.
especially when you're talking about intellectual property rights.
Absolutely. And the lawsuit, while eventually dismissed it, had a big impact.
Yeah.
Really stalled their work and put a damper on promoting the PLP.
What a setback after all that work they put into it.
It was.
So what happened next? Did the PLP just fade away?
Not quite. This is where the story takes another turn.
Over?
The school managers.
The school managers.
They saw potential in the PLP, but realized it needed some serious tweaking
Okay.
to work in the education sector.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They became this new wave of contextualizers,
Okay.
adapting the PLP to fit the needs of schools.
So instead of just giving up on the model,
Yeah,
they reinvented it
they reinvented it.
for their own purposes.
And what did that look like?
Yeah, what did they change?
Well, for starters, they broadened the scope.
Okay.
The PLP originally focused on leadership development for school leaders, but the school managers expanded it to include teachers, school boards, even politicians.
Wow.
They wanted a more holistic approach to development,
Yeah, the whole ecosystem.
encompassing the entire educational ecosystem.
That makes a lot of sense because education is all about collaboration.
Exactly.
So a model that only focuses on individual leadership might not be enough.
Exactly. And they actually renamed it the Learning Pipeline, or Learn NP,
Okay, I like that.
to reflect this broader focus.
Yeah, on learning and growth, not just leadership.
Exactly.
So they basically made a whole new pipeline
Yes.
just for education.
Just for education.
Yeah.
So what role did Peter and Morton play in all this?
Yeah, were they sidelined by the lawsuit?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And this is where that dynamism of the roles really shines through.
Okay.
They embraced the Learn P.
Wow.
And get this, they took on the codifier role once again.
They did.
They collaborated with the school managers to publish a new book,
Wow.
solidifying the Learn P as its own model.
That's amazing. They went from being sued for plagiarism
I know.
to endorsing and codifying an adaptation of their own work.
It really speaks volumes about their adaptability
It does.
and willingness to learn and evolve.
That's a great lesson right there.
And the Catalyst role also changed.
Okay.
Conferences were now targeted at school managers, showcasing the Learn P and its potential to address their challenges.
So the focus shifted from like a one-size-fits-all solution
Yeah, it's-
to something more specific.
To something more specific.
Okay.
And remember those managers acting as liaisons, spreading the PLP as they moved between organizations.
Yeah.
Well, people like Kim, who went from local government to education,
Okay.
they played a crucial role in bringing the PLP and then the Learn P to these new workplaces.
Those cross-sector transitions are so interesting.
They are.
They bring new perspectives and challenge those old assumptions.
Absolutely. But here's the most fascinating twist.
Okay, what is it?
Remember how Peter and Morton were originally endorsing the PLP?
Yeah.
Well, now the tables have turned.
Really?
Now they're the ones endorsing the school manager's Learn P model.
Wow. So they're acknowledging the value of the adaptations and the innovations introduced by the practitioners.
It's a beautiful example of how this ecology of roles is constantly evolving and adapting.
It's not about hierarchy or ownership. It's about collaboration and making ideas work.
It really challenges that traditional view of management knowledge as something that just flows from experts down to practitioners.
Right. It's way more dynamic.
It is.
Than that.
I think the key takeaway here is that translating management ideas is not a linear top-down process.
Nope.
It's messy. It's iterative. And it's incredibly dynamic. It involves all these different people.
It does.
And sometimes the most unexpected moves lead to the best outcomes.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to Kasper Trolle Elmholdt, Jeppe Agger Nielsen, Arild Wæraas, and Renate Meyer for this insightful research. Published in the Journal of Management Studies, it's given us a lot to think about.
Indeed. And all of you listening, make sure you subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and check out our YouTube channel, Weekend Researcher, for more deep dives into fascinating academic research.
And don't forget to leave us a comment on the Weekend Researcher YouTube channel with any papers you'd like us to discuss. We're always looking for new material to explore.
So here's a thought-provoking question to leave you with. We've seen how the leadership pipeline required significant translation to work in the Danish public sector, first as the PLP and then as the Learn MP. What other seemingly universal management ideas might actually need a similar level of adaptation to thrive in different contexts?
That's a great question to ponder. It reminds us that context matters and that the most effective solutions are often those that are tailored to the specific needs and realities of the people and organizations they're meant to serve.
Until next time, keep revising and resubmitting.